Good. It's 12 o'clock, and let me welcome all of you to Grow with Google Bootcamp, we're calling it. This is the first of 5 sessions, and we've spaced them out for you so that there's one each month. And this is the first one, probably, in my opinion, one of the most important. It's about Google Analytics. And we are thrilled and honored to have Pamela Starr with us today. She is a professional trainer with Grow with Google, as you can see from her shirt. She's a member of the team, the Grow with Google team. So I don't want to spend a lot of her time introducing her, but I have a little few things that I need to cover. So let me get started. I just want to tell you a little bit about SCORE. This is being brought to you by the Minnesota chapter of SCORE, which is part of a resource partner with the Small Business Administration. SCORE offers free confidential business mentoring, both in person and online. I think I pushed those two together, both in person and online. And we want to help you. If you have a small business and you have concerns about something, contact us. Our chapter has nearly 90 volunteers waiting to help you with your small business. And I'm proud to say our chapter recently was named a District Chapter of the Year. So since its founding more than 50 years ago, SCORE has assisted over 11 million clients. Well, in what part of your process can SCORE help you? Well, we help you literally in all aspects of it. Whether you just woke up this morning and thought you had a great idea and you want to contact us, we'll help you, and we'll help you identify whether that's a viable, can you make money? And there's a way that we have to help you identify that. Or you've opened up a business and you need some help with that, or you need to grow, or lastly, you need to or want to exit your business. We actually have a team dedicated for just that topic: how to sell, how much to sell for, and all the things that you need to watch out for relative to that. I'd like to encourage you to visit our website, minnesota.score.org. That's where you go to request a mentor. And if you're out of our area, we're going to have a lot of people. We have over 700 people signed up for this webinar, so I don't think all of them are here in Florida. But if you want to go to our website to request a mentor, you'll be then directed to someone in your area. You can find other workshops or webinars, and that's where you'll be signing up for the other 4 of these bootcamp sessions. You can locate podcasts. So if you missed a session, you can always look for a podcast or other resources in our libraries. We've got a lot of templates and other items that would be of value to you. And lastly, I want to thank all of our sponsors and community partners. These are the folks that help us keep the lights on, and that's important. We do have some expenses. We have an office, and we put on webinars, both live and virtual. And so we have expenses, and we want to thank these community partners and, most importantly, our sponsors. You'll see many of our sponsors are banks, and that's because when you come in with a SCORE mentor, you can get to talk to the right person at a bank, and they're happy to talk to you because they know that you're accountable to somebody like a SCORE mentor. So without further ado, I would like to turn this over to our wonderful presenter, Pamela Starr. Take it away, Pamela.
Well, thank you, Diane, and welcome everybody to this presentation where you're going to get an introduction to Google Analytics. So let me tell you a little bit more about who I am and why I am here for you. I have the greatest gig in the whole wide world. Like Diane mentioned, I am a professional trainer for Grow with Google. That's the division of Google that provides all kinds of no-cost educational resources to people just like you. Pre-COVID, Google put me on an airplane and flew me all around North America to do face-to-face presentations with small businesses. Because of COVID and all the changes that everybody got used to after that, I actually have not been flying for Google, or haven't been traveling for Google. Instead, I've had the opportunity to help actually even more people by doing webinars just like today. All of the Google presentations that I do are all hosted by a nonprofit organization that is a Grow with Google partner. And as you just heard, of course, today's webinar is hosted by SCORE. Personally, I am a huge fan of SCORE. I worked with a SCORE mentor for well over a year to help me get my thoughts organized for some things I wanted to do in my business. And I work with SCORE chapters all around the country. So I know what a great job they do for all kinds of people just like you. So if you ever have a problem with your business, if you're like me, you've got friends and family who want to give you all kinds of advice and suggestions. Take those suggestions to heart, or take them, thank those people, and then schedule some time to talk with a SCORE mentor, because they can really help you navigate all the ins and outs of your business. Now, of course, you're not here to learn about me. You're here to learn about Google Analytics. And just a note for those of you that are joining us just now, today's presentation is being recorded, and you will get an email from SCORE a little bit, probably in the next 24 hours or so, that will have a link to the recording, as well as a copy of all of my slides. So you don't need to scribble down everything that I say today. We will be sure that you get all the information that you need. Now, when we talk about Google Analytics, we are going to be talking about data and numbers. And towards the middle part of this presentation, I'm going to show you a lot of charts and graphs and that type of thing. I don't want you to have a flashback to 8th grade math. Don't worry about that. But it's important to understand that I know as a small business professional, you're probably creative. You have a vision. Otherwise, you wouldn't have a small business. For people like us, and I include myself in that world, who have visions and dreams, sometimes looking at data can feel like a real downer. So here's one of my favorite quotes. It's from the former chairman at Unilever. And he says, data makes your briefcase heavy. Insights are what make you rich. So what that means is sometimes thinking about numbers and charts and graphs, it just seems overwhelming. It's not the numbers by themselves that are going to help you be more successful with your business. It's the information you glean from that information, the information you glean from those numbers, and then the decisions that you make about your business based on all of that information and all of those numbers. That's what's going to help your business grow. Now, don't worry what that means, because I'm going to kind of walk you through some examples in today's presentation. Now, just so you all know, I have 2 monitors that are going on right now. Diane told me ahead of time she also has 2 monitors that are going on right now. If you have questions for me about what it is that I'm talking about today, please put your questions in the Q&A section of the Zoom. I am not looking at the chat. As Diane said, we had more than 700 people actually register for today. And so my eyeballs can only be on so many places at once. Questions for me, put them in Q&A. I will get to as many as I can towards the end of today's presentation. So just know that that's the way that we're going to be operating with today's workshop. All right, and I see Fernando, you get the digital prize for being the first person to do a question. Says, how do I get on Google? If you're referring to Google advertising, Fernando, I'm going to touch on that super briefly at the end of today's presentation. But today's presentation is about Google Analytics. So we're not going to be too much about ads. Just know that I will touch on that. All right, so this is what I am going to be talking about today. First of all, I'm going to give you an introduction into what is Google Analytics, how does it operate, and that type of thing. Then I'm going to talk about some of the reports that are available to you in Google Analytics. I am going to touch, Fernando, if this was your question, about how you can link Google Analytics to Google Ads, but don't worry, I'm not here to sell you ads. That is not the point of today's presentation. And then I appreciate the fact that for many of you, this is a lot of new information, and we only have an hour together today. So at the end of today's presentation, I'm going to share with you some additional resources that Google has for you for more no-cost training for you. I like to talk about as many free things as I possibly can. Kind of makes me feel like Oprah, to offer you free education and free resources. So stick tight for the end of today's presentation, because you'll have those resources as well. Okay, so let's talk about insights. Remember just a couple of minutes ago, I gave you that quote that data feels like a downer. Insights is what you need to grow your business. Now, when it comes to unlocking new opportunities for our business, many people kind of use their gut instinct. Maybe you've been in business for a little while. Maybe you feel like you know your customer pretty well. Or maybe you're thinking about starting a business based on an idea you have. And, based on your life experiences, maybe you kind of have a thought about how you want your business to develop. Gut instincts are kind of a good place to kind of start, but you definitely want to use something more than just gut instincts to make good decisions about your business. You want to use the insights that you can start to glean from data that you find in Google Analytics. Now, don't worry if I'm losing you, because I'll walk you through that in today's presentation. Having said that, those insights, the information you glean to help you make better decisions for your business, in order to really be helpful for you if you want to grow your business, those insights need to be novel, meaning it needs to be new information for you. It needs to be credible. It needs to come from a good source, which may or may not be your friends, your family member, somebody that you saw on YouTube. And it also needs to be actionable. You need to know, what can I do with this information? Because having information that you can't take any action on doesn't really help you. All that it does is kind of clutter your mind. And if you're like me, the last thing that any of us need is just more clutter in our mind. That's not going to help us achieve any of our goals. So I mentioned 8th grade math a moment ago. Now we're going to take you back to 8th grade English. And I want to talk a little bit about vocabulary. Don't worry, there is no quiz at the end of today's presentation, but I want you to kind of understand some of the terms that Google uses in relation to the analytics tool. Data are just numbers. Data by themselves don't mean anything to you. A piece of data could be something like, great news, you think. Every month you have 10,000 people who visit your website. Or you may think, well, oh my goodness, that's totally unattainable for me. I'm lucky if I have 40 people visit my website in any given month. But that number, 10,000 compared to 40, by itself, that number doesn't tell you anything that you can use to grow your business. What you want to look at are analytics, which are patterns or trends in that data. You may think, I would be ecstatic if I had 10,000 people visit my website this month, and maybe you would be. But if last month you had 11,000, and the month before you had 12,000, and a year ago you had 20,000 people visit your website, that's showing you that you are declining in the number of people that visit your website. All of a sudden, that pattern or that trend is telling you you've got a problem. On the flip side, if you are just getting started, and maybe you're lucky if you have 30 people visit your website, and you probably are related to all of them, that's just a starting point. If next month you have 40 people, and some of them you'd have no idea where they came from, and the month after that you have 50 people, that's good news, because that means that your trend is going up. That's why just looking at one number by itself is totally meaningless to you. Now, what's really important, though, are the insights that you glean out of that data and those analytics, those patterns or trends. If you made some changes to how you started to market your website, and if month after month after month, the number of visitors on your website who took an action you wanted them to take starts to grow, that's telling you that you're making some good decisions. Now, don't worry, I'm going to walk you through a lot of this as we go on through today's presentation. So I just kind of want to give you a little bit of a framework about that. So what is Google Analytics? Google Analytics is 100% free software that you can attach to your website. Now, I like to stress the fact that there is absolutely no charge for Google Analytics. Sometimes people have told me that they thought that Google Analytics was expensive. Google Analytics is not expensive at all. It's totally free. Where expenses sometimes come into play are if perhaps you have outsourced your website development to somebody and they've said, oh, for X dollars a month, I can manage your Google Analytics account for you. If that's the case, you're not paying for Google Analytics, you're paying for that person's expertise and their time. Now, you do not ever need to pay anybody anything to manage Google Analytics. You absolutely can do it 100% yourself. Whether or not investing the time is right for your business, that's a great conversation to have with a SCORE mentor. Because of course, as a business professional, you've got 40,000 things that you could be, should be, really ought to be doing with your 24 hours in a day. And a SCORE mentor can kind of help you figure out what's the most important things for you to do and which other things can you outsource. But having said that, you don't ever need to pay anybody anything to use Google Analytics. So what does Google Analytics do for you? It gives you general information about how groups of people interact your website. How do groups of people discover your website? What do they do when they get on your website? Now, just so you know, Google Analytics will not tell you specific people who visit your website. If I went to your website this afternoon, it would not say Pamela Starr visited your website this afternoon. It doesn't give you that level of detailed information at all. Now, when you are wearing your business owner hats, you want to get as much detailed information about your visitors. But when you're wearing your consumer hats, we don't like it when we visit other people's websites and they're collecting information about us. Google is actually going through a change right now in the way that it collects this type of information, and I'll talk about that in just a couple of minutes. Now, if you have never set up Google Analytics before, you can set it up. As I said, there's absolutely no charge for this. You would go to g.co/analytics. And depending on the day, it seems like they change the call to action. Sometimes it might say start for free. It might say get started now. Simply click on that blue button and it will walk you through the process of setting it up. Now, another little vocabulary word here. Google will reference your property. A property is simply your website or your app. So if you are like most businesses, you probably just have one website. If that's the case, you have one property. You can use one Google Analytics account to evaluate multiple websites. Maybe you do have two different websites, and you can use one Google Analytics account and look at both websites through that one account. If you have one website and one app, that is two different properties. So just kind of want to be sure that we all understand what I'm talking about when I talk about properties. Now, little note about versions of Google Analytics. Google, as you may know, or you may not know, Google likes to change things on a regular basis. Just so you know, Google doesn't change things just to annoy us, although sometimes it can feel a little bit frustrating. Google makes changes to its tools based on changes in consumer website search behavior. So just know that's why Google changes tools. Google has been going through a change in Google Analytics for about the last year or so. If you set up Google Analytics in the past, you are probably in an experience that we call Google Analytics Universal or Universal Analytics. Google started rolling out a new version of Google Analytics a couple of years ago, which is called Google Analytics 4 or GA4. Google recently announced that next summer of 2023, Google is going to stop supporting, meaning offering support, help support, that type of thing, to the older version of Google Analytics. And Google is definitely encouraging people to migrate to the new version of Google Analytics, which is GA4. And that has a little bit more simplified ways of managing things. So just kind of know that. You may have heard something about Google Analytics is going away. It is not. It is just migrating to an updated, kind of cleaner version of the tool. If you currently are using Google Analytics and you are in the Google Analytics Universal experience, I definitely recommend that you add the new GA4 onto your account. And you would do that by going into your Google Analytics account, going to the admin section. You can find that at the wheel at the That's at the lower left-hand corner of your screen. And click on that. And then there's a GA4 setup assistant that will kind of walk you through that process. Just know it collects data in the two different systems. And so even if you're not quite ready to start looking at the new version of Google Analytics, definitely I recommend that you do add it to your website. So that way it will start collecting data. So that way when you are ready, kind of make that mental switch and start looking at the new version, you'll already have some data there. So let's talk a little bit about what your Google Analytics account looks like. This is just kind of a random screenshot that we have from Google Analytics Universal. There are going to be charts and graphs and that type of thing. The information is typically in the center well of your Google Analytics accounts. And then over on the left-hand side of the screen is the area where you can navigate to different reports and different features in Google Analytics. That's kind of what we would call your dashboard. Over the course of time, as you become more comfortable using Google Analytics, you can actually customize your dashboard. So that way the information that's most relevant to you shows up first thing on the dashboard. That way you can always find exactly what's meaningful for you. So now let's talk about some of these reports that can help you get information to help you make good decisions for your business. Now, I'm going to take you through with the example of a fictional business, just because it's a little bit easier to think about an actual business model here. So I want to introduce you to my fictional friends, Eva and Ricky, or they, depending on what part of the country you are from, you may think of them as Ava and Ricky. I'm from the South, so I call her Eva. So Eva and Ricky have a t-shirt store, and pre-COVID, they printed t-shirts, they took them around to places like farmers markets and craft fairs and art festivals, and they sold their t-shirts right there. And because of the way that their business model was, they had a really good grasp on who their customer was and what their customer liked. Their customer would say to them, "Oh, I love this shirt. I'm going to buy two, so that way I can have one and my sister can have one and we can wear them at the same time." Or people would say, "I want to buy this for, everybody in my family." Or, "No, I don't like that design because." So they would get really good feedback from their customers to help them grow their business. And then, as we all know, 2020 hits, and all of a sudden, craft fairs, farmers markets, art festivals were completely shut down. Eva and Ricky's business completely evaporated. They probably cried into their coffee for just a little bit, but then hopefully with the guidance of a SCORE mentor, they decided to pivot their business and start an online store selling the exact same t-shirts that they have. But what they found, though, was their online sales were not at all what they anticipated based on their face-to-face sales, and they didn't know why. Typically, what they would do is if they had a t-shirt that they would list online that they knew was one of their top sellers, if it wasn't selling well, they would just create another design, maybe a different version of that same design, and offer that. If it wasn't selling well, they would spend money on advertising, and it still might not sell well. So what do many business owners do when products aren't selling well? They cut their price. Now, folks, just so you know, for a small business, it's probably almost impossible to cut your price low enough to still have your business operate and still compete with some of the big chains. So that's cutting your price is not always the best decision to grow your business. Again, that's another great conversation to have with a SCORE mentor. Eva and Ricky also kind of designed a website for their target market, which, based on the face-to-face conversations they had with their customers, were women ages 35 to 44. Those are the people who loved their t-shirts, and that was the website that they designed, something that they thought would appeal to that particular demographic. So I just kind of want to give you their background so that way you can follow along in today's conversation. Now I'm going to pause for just a second here. I see some people have put in questions. Okay, I just wanted to double check to see if there's anything that people related to what people had asked me for already. Do you know what? I'll hold those questions until the end, just because I want to be sure I get through the content before we get into questions. So when it comes to looking at the data that's available to you in Google Analytics, there are things that you need to do kind of even before you dive into your Google Analytics account. First of all, you need to know what it is you're trying to achieve with your website. Then, based on that, you need to start kind of asking questions of yourself about how people interact with your website. Only then is it time to look at the reports. Now, when it comes to your website, if you have a website that is really nothing more than an online brochure, that website probably is not really going to help your business grow. What you want on your website is a call to action on almost every page of your website. Now, if you sell products like this ballpoint pen, that's pretty easy. Click here to buy now. But for those of you that are in service-based organizations, you may think, well, what could I possibly have on here? You could have a place for people to schedule a consultation with you. You can set up your website in a way where if they're looking at your website on their itty-bitty smartphone, they can tap on your telephone number and call you directly from your website. Google Analytics will measure the number of phone calls that come to you that way. You can have people sign up for your email address. That is something that you can have as a call to action on your website. Click here to get X, Y, and Z special report and more information from us in the future. So you do need to think really clearly. If a total complete random stranger looks at your website this afternoon, what do you want that person to do? Do you want them to just look at it and say, wow, this is great information, and then go look at funny cat videos on YouTube? Probably not. You want them to take some action on your website. Be sure you have that call to action built into your website, so that way you can figure out if people are actually doing what it is you want them to do. And that can help you figure out the goals for your website, because you need to know what are the goals of your website before you really start measuring your success in Google Analytics. Let's talk just really briefly about goals. I know for many of you, the goals of your business could be make more money, sell more stuff, increase sales a lot, that type of thing. I encourage you to think of something that we call SMART goals. SMART goals are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time sensitive. Make more money this year is not what we would call a SMART goal. Increase the number of online consultations I make in September of 22 by 10% over July of 22. That is what we would consider a SMART goal. So start thinking about what are the intermediate steps somebody needs to take in order to become your customer. If you sell a commodity like a pen, there may not be very many of them. But if you have a service type business or you sell a more expensive product, they may need to take these intermediate steps. The good news is with Google Analytics, you can start to measure those intermediate steps and figure out where are people falling off. Because where people fall off, that tells you that's an opportunity to change up your website or change up the way that you manage your business to keep more people on the trail to success and have fewer people kind of fall off that success. Again, if you're not sure how to figure out those intermediate steps, that's a great conversation to have with a SCORE mentor. Hopefully you all know, but you may not, working with a SCORE mentor, there is absolutely no cost to you for that. That's why I'm such a big advocate of you guys working with SCORE mentors, because there is absolutely no cost for you to work with somebody on an ongoing basis. So keep that in mind. Now, for our friends Eva and Ricky, remember they had an online store where now they're trying to sell t-shirts. They could have had a SMART goal of increasing the percentage of t-shirts by X%. But what they wanted to do was measure one of those intermediate steps. So they set up a goal of trying to decrease shopping cart abandonment to under 60% in the next quarter, because they knew if fewer people abandoned their shopping cart with product in it, they were going to sell more. So what they can do is they can actually use Google Analytics to start to measure how many people looked at a particular product compared to how many people put that product in their shopping cart compared to how many people actually purchased the product. So you can see those are 3 different phases somebody needs to go through before they become their customer. And Google Analytics can measure the numbers of people that achieve each of those milestones. That can let them know where people kind of fall out of the sales flow. So when it comes to you and the goals that you might have for your business, these are some ideas. And of course, for every business, it's going to be a little bit different. But obviously, if you sell products like t-shirts or ballpoint pens, that's fairly easy to know what your goals are. Sell more product. And you can get specific about the percentage and the time frame and that type of thing. But for those of you that don't sell physical products like t-shirts, you can have a goal related to the number of leads you get, or you can have goals related to appointments, obviously goals related to sales, goals related to the number of phone calls that you get. If you have a brick and mortar business, like a restaurant or a retail store, you can have a goal related to the amount of foot traffic, strangers that show up at your business unannounced. You can have a goal related to downloads. You can have a goal related to a variety of different things, but you need to know what those goals are, so then you can measure them in Google Analytics. Now, when it comes to Google Analytics, after you kind of know what your goals are, then you need to start asking yourself some questions. And I'll go through these 4 different groups of questions here right now. The first types of questions that you can start asking that Google Analytics can give you information about are what we would call reach questions. What is it people are searching for? Everybody's always all entranced with the idea of having Google Analytics show up, or having your website show up on the first page of Google in its organic search results. Google Analytics will give you information, will let you know what keywords do people use to show up on your website. Now, keywords are these seemingly magical words that if only you had the perfect keywords and sprinkled them throughout your website would magically show up on the first page of Google. Keywords absolutely are important. And just so you know, it is not magic, it is simply math. But different keywords will trigger different experiences. You may find that people that search for ballpoint pen and land on your website behave one way. Maybe they're more likely to buy. People that search for ink pen may also land on your website, but they may be less likely to buy. So Google Analytics can let you know, are you even reaching the types of people that are likely to buy your products or use your services, or take whatever action on your website you want them to take. Reach questions will also give you general information about who is your audience and how do they find you online. This is one of the things that I personally like about Google Analytics the most. I'm going to guess that all of you probably, hopefully, are marketing your business in a variety of different ways. Some of you may be spending a lot of time on social media, which is oftentimes that's great. Google Analytics will let you know how many people came to your website because of social media, compared to how many people came to your website because of those organic search results, versus how many people came to your website through online advertising or from things that we call referrals. And a referral is when your website URL address is listed on somebody else's website. What you will find over the course of time is that people that come to your website through those different channels, is what we call those different areas, they will behave differently on your website. You may be spending a tremendous amount of time on social media, but Google Analytics may tell you, sure, the people that visit your website from social media, they visit your website, but then they don't take any action on your website, compared to perhaps people that come to your website from your email marketing campaigns. Maybe you have fewer visitors from your email marketing campaigns, but those people are the ones that are likely to take the action you need them to take. If you didn't look at Google Analytics, you would not know that. You would just kind of assume that, everybody who visits your website kind of behaves the same way. Google Analytics can really help you get precise about, are you reaching the right people and what groups of people are taking the actions you want them to take. Other things Google Analytics can do is help you understand, how are you engaging with people? Once people find you online, are they spending more time on your website? Are they taking actions on your website? Are they downloading things on your website? Again, If you don't measure this information, you don't know how people are truly engaging with your website. Conversion questions are things that are probably most important to you. Google Analytics can let you know, are people taking that action you want them to take? Now, when we think of the word conversion, typically we think of make a sale. If somebody buys my pen, I count that as a conversion. But remember, I mentioned a couple of minutes ago that for most of you, there are different phases people need to go through in that sales process before they actually whip out their credit card and give you their money. And so all those different actions can be measured, and those are different, what we would call different conversions. So just kind of keep that in mind. You may find that people that come to your website from the organic search results are great about landing on the page to schedule a consultation, but they never actually complete the consultation request, compared to perhaps people that come to you from referral sources. Maybe you're a member of your local chamber of commerce and your website address is on their website. Those people may be more likely to actually book an appointment with you. Google Analytics can give you that information. Then the other group of questions Google Analytics can help you with are what we call sustained questions. Do people come back to your website? This is one of the challenges for people whose website is really nothing more than an online brochure. People may go to your website once, read every word on your website and say, okay, I know everything I need to know, and never come back again. You really do want to give people a reason to come back to your website on a regular basis. That could be by having a blog or having updated information, or having something as easy as a quick little calculator or some type of tool or poll or something on your website. Give people a reason to come back. Google Analytics will let you know, do first-time visitors behave one way compared to repeat visitors? Do they behave a different way? So that gives you good information to know if first-time visitors, you might have 10,000 first-time visitors on your website, but if they never take any action and they never do anything on your website and they never come back, those 10,000 people really aren't doing anything other than just giving you a little bit of an ego boost. They are not helping your business grow. Google Analytics can really help you figure out a lot of these nuances. Okay, so now that we kind of set the groundwork about Google Analytics and how you can use it to help your business grow, let's actually take a look at some reports. Now, for the sake of today's presentation, the reports that I am showing you are part of Google Analytics Universal. If you are already using GA4, your reports will look a little bit different. They're actually a little bit more streamlined, which personally I think is kind of a good thing. But Google has not yet released the updated version of this presentation to talk about GA4. So be on the lookout for next time that's available. Hopefully we can do this presentation again later on in the year or early next year, and I can show you some examples of GA4. But since most people still have Universal, this is what we're showing right now. So now I know for some of you looking at all these charts and graphics may feel a little bit overwhelming. A handful of you may be like, absolutely, I'm all about the data. When you first get into Google Analytics on any given day and you're going to your Google Analytics accounts, it will show you what we call the dashboard. And as I mentioned before, that is something that you can set up so that way the information that's most important to you is the first thing that you see. If you don't set that up proactively, and you don't have to if you're just getting started, but if you don't set that up proactively, typically you'll be placed into what we call the real-time report. And real-time is kind of exactly what it sounds like. How many people are on your website right now? Now, when I say right now, it actually goes back to 30 minutes ago. Now, if you have lots of people that visit your website on a regular basis, the real-time report can be really helpful. Perhaps there was an article about you or a story about you in the local news. Wouldn't that be fantastic? And people were talking about, we're doing Friday focus on small businesses. Here's so-and-so, this is their small business. If you want to learn more about them, here's their website. That would be a great example of when you want to look at that real-time report right after that story airs to see how many people did come to your website as a result of that news story. Now, for those of you who are just getting started with your website, you may look at the real-time report and there may be 0 people on your website at any given time. That's perfectly fine. If you're just getting started, you don't even need to worry about the real-time report, simply because the numbers will be small and they won't be meaningful or particularly helpful for you. Real-time report works best for people that have more visitors, who are more actively trying to promote their website at targeted points. Maybe they're doing an advertising campaign or a big social media post. They can check their real-time report immediately after that to see if they got any immediate bump. Now, in the real-time report, as I said, you can watch as people behave on your website. Keep in mind, Google does not tell you the specific people who behave on your website. Instead, it shows you how groups of people behave on your particular website. Now, the next report is one that I've kind of alluded to a couple of times already. This is the acquisition report. In my opinion, this is one of the most helpful reports for small businesses. So when it comes to acquisition, remember, and I always hate to say this, not all visitors to your website are going to be equally valuable to your business. Now, let me just kind of pause and say, all of us as human beings are equally valuable as human beings. However, for your business, you want to attract the type of people who have a problem you can solve for them. You want to attract your ideal future customer. In acquisition reports, Google will let you know where were people online before they came and visited you. And this is where you can get really great information about how many people were on social media before they came to your website, how many people were in those other tools that I keep talking about. Maybe you sent out an email campaign this morning. You can look and see how many people landed on your website this afternoon. That acquisition report is one of the really helpful things for small businesses. If you find out that nobody ever shows up at your email on your website from your social media, that's telling you either just stop social media because you're kind of spinning your wheels, or you need to redesign your social media mindsets. So that way you're creating more posts with the intent of driving people back to your website. The acquisition report will also allow you to follow those groups of people through your website. So that way you can determine which groups of people are more likely to take the action you need them to take to help your overall business grow. Other reports are engagement reports, and this kind of works hand in hand with acquisition. An engaged session means that somebody is actually paying attention to your website. What you don't necessarily want are people to visit your website once, look at it, pop off, and never come back again, as I mentioned before. But engagement is more than just the number of people that view your page. Engagement is when people take some action on your website. So on your website, next time you are looking at your website, look at it from some fresh eyes. Are there things for people to do on the different pages on your website? Are there links for people to click? Are there reports for them to download? Is there something that they can click on to call you if that's part of your business model? If you don't give people anything to do on your website, Google will not be able to track engagement through Google Analytics. Now, in Google's world, an engaged session lasts 10 seconds or more, or has one event, such as clicking on a link, or somebody has 2 or more page views. So that's kind of what Google calls an engaged session. So just kind of know that, because you may hear some of that lingo, or learn a little bit about that lingo if you're trying to get deeper in your information about Google Analytics. Now, for those of you that sell physical products like this pen or like a t-shirt, you can have monetization reports as well. And that just lets you know, are people physically buying your products? So again, you may find that people that come to your website through social media may be more likely to buy your products compared to people that come to your website through Google's organic search results. If that's the case, then you don't necessarily need to get all focused on trying to show up #1 on Google. because you might have hordes of people who visit your website if you're on the first page of Google, but if they never buy your stuff, they're not helping your business grow. So those monetization reports can really help you understand, are people buying? But even better than that, are people not buying? And when are they dropping out of the purchasing process? If you do have physical products to sell on your website, like a pen, or even if you have a digital product like an ebook, you know when people are buying because you see that in whatever software you use to track your sales. But you also do need to keep track of when people are not buying. And that's what I've alluded to a couple of times before. And you can find out some of this information also in these monetization reports. Retention is a whole nother group of reports that are available to you in Google Analytics. Retention lets you know, are people coming back to your website? And as I said, do first-time visitors behave one way on your website compared to repeat visitors? If you have nothing on your website that gives people a reason to come back, guess what? They probably won't. You do want to encourage people to come back to your website. So you can also kind of figure out which group of people are the ones that are going to take that path you need them to take to become your paying customer to help your business grow. Now, the next set of reports I'm going to talk about are demographics. And right now in the summer of 2022, demographics are a really hot topic of conversation out there. Google Analytics Universal historically would show you reports that gave you basic demographic information about the groups of people that interacted with your website. Google Analytics Universal would tell you approximately how many people self-identified as male, about how many people self-identified as female, about what age bracket do these people fall into, what is their general metropolitan areas that they live in, what are their countries, that type of thing. Right now, as you probably are aware, there is a huge focus right now on giving people the opportunity to protect their personal information, like what sex do they identify with, what is their age, and that type of thing. So Google is actually backing away from gathering all of this information and providing it to you in Google Analytics. When you're wearing your consumer hats, you're like, oh, this is great because I don't want people to track me this way. When you're wearing your business professional hats, it may be a little bit frustrating or a little bit disappointing that you don't have as much of this information as you used to. Just know that that's something that is a very, it's changing very rapidly. And so over the course of time, there may be different ways that big tech tools like Google are looking at this information. So just kind of be on the lookout for some updates right now. Last time I went into my Google Analytics account, my GA4 account was not showing me demographic information at all. So just know that Google is kind of trying to figure out where's the happy medium here to not violate people's personal privacy, but then also help businesses just like you reach your ideal future customer. So now let's go back to our friends Eva and Ricky. Remember, they were making decisions about their online business using their gut instinct. They were creating t-shirts that were designed for women ages 35 to 44. They were doing some advertising on Google and they just assumed those were the people that were actually visiting their website. And they knew that many of their sales were for people in their local community. So they figured that most of their visitors to their website were from their local community. Once they actually started looking at Google Analytics, they discovered a totally different thing. They discovered that the people that were visiting their website, not necessarily the buyers, but the visitors were very different. Those people self-identified as male and were in a little bit younger age brackets. And that potentially could be why their t-shirts that they created with women in mind weren't selling very well on their website because a totally different group of people was actually visiting their website. They also discovered that most of their visitors were from other states. Now, those people weren't buying their stuff because their stuff wasn't right for that audience. So then they have a decision to make. Either they can take a fresh look at their products. Clearly, they're reaching people, they're reaching numbers of people, but there's a disconnect between their product and the people that they are reaching. So they've got a decision. Either they could create different types of t-shirts that perhaps might be more interesting to the types of people that were actually visiting their website, or they could say, no, we definitely want to create t-shirts that have more female themes on it. Maybe it's stuff like breast cancer awareness or world's greatest grandma or something like that. And if that's the case, they can keep their products the way that they have them. They just need to do some different type of marketing to reach the type of people that they want to reach, who are going to be more likely to buy their audience, to buy their products. But if they didn't look at Google Analytics, they wouldn't even know that there was a total disconnect between their products and the people that were visiting their website. That's why it's so important that you don't get all hung up on the number of visitors you have on your website every single month. Because as I mentioned before, all of those visitors are not going to help your business equally. You want to be sure that you're being found by the types of people that can help your business grow. Google Analytics will help you kind of identify all of that. Now, I'm going to go really quickly into one level deeper here, and I'm going to talk a little bit about a slightly more advanced feature in Google Analytics, which is called dimensions. Now, I talked a little bit about the different pieces of information Google will tell you about the groups of people that visit your website. Things like their city, things like their source. Those labels are called dimensions. What you can actually do is kind of layer different dimensions on top of each other if you really want to get precise. You can find out perhaps maybe you were on a local television show where they were talking all about, local small businesses, and they mentioned you. You can then layer city as one dimension with people taking one action. So you can kind of really find out, you can get really precise with the groups of people to see, based on that great news story that was about my business. Sure, I know all these people, based on my real-time report, visited my website immediately after that interview, but did those people actually be more likely to buy or not? And you can do that by layering dimensions on top of each other. And I just wanted to introduce that phrase to you because as you do more research into Google Analytics, you may hear people talk about dimensions. So I wanted to let you know what those were. Now, for those of you that are already doing advertising with Google, you can link Google Analytics to your Google Ads account. And you want to do that because if you're doing online advertising with Google, Google Ads will give you data about how people interact with the advertisement. But once people land on your website, that's where Google Analytics will take over. So let's say you have two ads. One is for this black pen, one is for this red pen. If you link Google Analytics to Google Ads, Google Analytics can tell you the people that clicked on the ad for the black pen were more likely to check out and buy anything on the website than people that clicked on the link for the red pen. So that's why you do want to kind of go ahead and link those two tools if you use them both. Now, again, if you're just getting started, don't worry about that. Just kind of file in the back of your head that that's an opportunity for you when you're a little bit further on down the road. And as I said, if you want to link those two tools, you would go into the admin tab in your Google Analytics account. And from the property column, go to the place where there's Google Ads linking. Okay, I'm keeping my eye on the clock and we're starting to wind down here. I know we've got questions in the Q&A. I will kind of go through those here in just a couple of minutes. But for some of you, I know this is a lot of information. So let's kind of regroup a little bit. The very first thing I want you to do is take a fresh look at your website. Think of what is the goal of your website? How do you want your website to help your business grow? And as Diane mentioned at the very beginning, today's Google webinar is one of a whole series that I'm doing for this same group. So be on the lookout for my other webinars that I'm doing, one a month, because I'll be talking more about your website. And so, but you do need to know what is the goal of your website. Then you can start to kind of ask questions about, Wonder what the people who visit my website, what are they doing? And that's where you can figure out what reports do you want to take a look at. Then that's where you can start to measure your growth and take some action. I'll be honest with you, Google Analytics can feel a little bit overwhelming if you're just jumping into it. What I do recommend is before you go into Google Analytics on any given day, think for a minute and say, what is it I want to try and learn today? Figure out that one piece of information. Once you get your answer, shut down out of your accounts, go take a walk around the block, kind of clear your head a little bit. It is easy to kind of get sucked into a Google Analytics rabbit hole. Don't let yourself get frustrated. So just be mindful of that you know what it is you want to learn every time you go into your Google Analytics account. So speaking of learning, I've got a couple of other resources I want to share with you that Google has. One of them is called Google Primer. This is an app you can download wherever it is that you download any of your apps to your phone. There's an Android version as well as an Apple version. Google Primer has a little search bar, and you can type Google Analytics into the search bar, and Primer will present to you a whole list of lessons related about Google Analytics. There are all kinds of other lessons on there. Some of them actually were written in conjunction with SCORE about business financing and that type of thing. But what's nice about these lessons is they're quick and easy and kind of fun. They take anywhere from 3 to 6 minutes long. So if you need a mental break in your day, reach for Primer, have a little bit of fun, and learn something at the same time. Now, if you want to take a deep dive and really master Google Analytics or any of the other business tools that Google has another free resource, which is called Skillshop. You can find that at skillshop.withgoogle.com. And you can get much more in-depth training about all the different tools that Google has. There's a whole analytics academy. There's a whole training about Google Ads and that type of thing. That's if you want to get a really deep dive. Now, I personally have something for all of you. One of the questions I get asked all the time is, hey, Pamela, if I'm redoing my website, how can I get free stock photo that's copyright free? What's the best tool to use for videos and that type of thing? And because so many people ask me those questions all the time, I put together an email that's got free marketing resources. And this is just a whole group of websites that I've kind of cobbled together. And I'll be happy to send that to you. If you want to get a copy of that, you can connect with me. And I just put into the chats there where you can request to get that list from me via email. SCORE does not give me your email addresses, so I don't have that information. But if you do want to get that information from me, or if you want to ask me questions later on, that's the way that you can connect with me via email. So just know that that's available for you. Totally free resource. I don't have any ties to any of that stuff, just stuff I kind of found and I figured I'd start sharing with people. All right. Finally, if you can't remember anything I ever say, I want you to remember Grow with Google. That is the division of Google that has all kinds of free resources for you. You can go to the website, which is simply google.com/grow. And that takes me to the end of my presentation. I know Diane has some final comments that she wanted to make. And then Diane, if it's okay, may spend a couple of extra minutes going through some of these questions because I see we have some that are piled up. But at this point, Diane, I'll let you make your closing remarks. So if there's anybody that needs to leave right at the end of the hour, they'll get all the content that they needed.
Great, thank you. I'm wowed. That was just a wonderful presentation, covered so many topics, and not just the understanding of the Google Analytics, but why they're so important and how you can adapt them. So I just very briefly want to say, if you are inspired to get a SCORE mentor, please go to minnesota.score.org. If you're not in our area, you'll be redirected to someone in your area. Maybe you even might want to volunteer as a mentor. Yes, maybe you don't know Google Analytics, but you know a lot about a lot of other things. So you can go on there and volunteer as well. Check out our other workshops. If you want to sign up for the remaining 4 workshops that Pamela is going to give, minnesota.score.org. score.org and click on workshops, take a workshop, and you'll see them all listed. There's a QR code here that would get you to our website as well. If you want to click, Pamela. And so thank you. You are going to be getting a survey. And if you could just take a moment to fill in that survey. As the education chair, I want to know two things. What could we improve? And most importantly, what other topics? So please take a moment to fill that in. If you think Pamela did a great job, then 9s and 10s are always welcome. All right, Pamela, let's hit those questions. We have quite a few. Can you see them? Would you like to answer them?
Nope, I can absolutely see them. Thanks, Diane. Okay. And again, these are questions you all have typed into the Q&A. If you put something in the chat, I'm not looking at the chat.
Exactly.
All right, so let's see. Christy asks, I'm in the process of switching websites and hosts. Will that affect analytics as long as I keep the same URL? In other words, is Google SEO and analytics attached to the website or the URLs? It can travel with you, Christy. So just be sure that as you're switching over, that you don't want to start a new one. Just be sure that it kind of migrates over for you on that. All right, Joseph says, can a company manage clients' websites on the same analytics account, or do you need multiple accounts for each company's property? Joseph, you can have just one Google Analytics account. And if you are a service provider, you can manage different companies' websites, analytics data, all within your one Google Analytics account. There we go. All right, Mary Beth says, how can I get help? I signed up for Google Analytics, but it won't connect to my site. I am stuck. This is actually a challenge for some people, and there may be other questions kind of similar vein here. Because there is no charge for this particular tool, Google doesn't necessarily offer really good support, certainly not one-on-one support. What you can do is you can go to support.google.com and kind of navigate through the overall Google support documentation. It can get you to the place straight in Google Analytics. And then what you can do is type in your question. And if your question is answered in one of the official help documents, it'll take you right there. But 9 times out of 10, somebody else had the exact same question. And so then there's kind of a community of people that will have kind of answered that question for you. Having said that, those are the ways that you can get all that stuff for free. There obviously are all kinds of professionals that they manage Google Analytics for clients. That's what they do for a living. I don't recommend any of those above anything else. I'm always all about free first. But there are people out there who you could potentially find in your local community who can help you one-on-one if that's what you're looking for. Unfortunately, as I said, Google does not offer individual support for its free tools, unfortunately. All right, Leanne says, I don't see Google Analytics in my admin console. How do I access it in the admin console? Leanne, I'm not sure what admin console you are looking at. But if you want to start Google Analytics, you can just simply go right back to, let me see if I can find it. Let's see if I can go back to that same, here we go. Go back to the place with the URL where you can just go ahead and start right from the get-go. There we go. You can simply go straight to g.co/analytics, Leanne. So hopefully that kind of gets you to where it is that you need to go. All right, let's see. All right, we've got a question here. Jolanta says, I have a measurement ID tagged on my website, yet in the analytics dashboard, I have a message that says no data received from your website yet. I'm not sure why that would be specific for your particular situation, but again, that would be a great thing to do to go to the general support. And you know what? I will type into the support chat. I'll type into the chat. Whoops, I just made a typo there. Yeah. All right, I'm 90% certain that's the right URL. I usually just go to my computer and it does it. Somebody go to that support.google.com and let me know if that works. If not, you can Google supports and then type in that problem that you have, Jolanta, and chances are good somebody else has reported the answer to that particular question. All right, let's see. Now we've got a long one here, so bear with me. Okay, so Karen says, I'm going to kind of paraphrase Karen's question a bit here. She wrote a lot here. She's concerned that the data is showing that she's got a lot more visitors than she thinks that she actually really has. She's saying that she does have 3 web pages under your main homepage. They've got 3 different locations. It could absolutely be what I'm going to guess, again, not having seen this. My guess, Karen, if you've got 3 locations that are kind of under your main website, it's probably adding all 3 of those locations together. So hopefully that kind of answers that question for you. Okay, Karen also says that she was told that if we don't switch to GA4 by October 2023, you would not have access to historical data. My slide said 2021. 2021 is when Google started recommending that you switch over to GA4, Karen. You will still have data until 2023, data from Universal from 2023. My hunch is that you'll probably have it a bit longer, but obviously nobody asks me. Google does not ask me those things, but that's my stuff here. Let's see, there you go. Lynette says, if I'm selling books and other items, do I need to have more than one website? Well, Lynette, it's going to depend on how different they are. If you're selling books and plumbing equipment, those are 2 pretty different things. If you're selling books and you're selling home decor, kind of depending on how you package that, what's the attitude, perhaps it could be on one website. But Lynette, that's a great conversation to have with a score mentor, because they can kind of find out, is it the same audience for both types of products? So I would say definitely talk to a score mentor about that, because they can kind of really help you figure out, do you have one business or do you have 2 different businesses? All right. Okay, Ruth says, can I use Google Analytics to study traffic on our Facebook page, which is our only online presence, or do we need a website? Facebook has its own analytics. Google Analytics does not measure traffic on Facebook. Google Analytics would measure traffic on your primary website, as well as any apps that you have. Now, I'm not going to go deep into this. I'm a huge Facebook fan. However, be mindful, Ruth, you do not control your Facebook presence. Facebook controls your Facebook presence. I worry whenever I hear a small business who says that their only online presence is just on Facebook or TikTok or whatever it is, because I have seen too many situations where Facebook makes some change or somebody inadvertently violates Facebook's terms and conditions, and their Facebook account is shut down, and all of a sudden their entire stream of new customers is completely evaporated all in an instant. So for all of you, Facebook is great for many businesses. I would not rely on that as being your only online presence, because you don't control it the way that you do control your own website. But the answer to your question is no, Google Analytics does not measure traffic on Facebook. All right. Jim says, why doesn't my analytics page show engagement? I'm not sure, Jim, why it doesn't do that. What you might want to look for are things like time in session. That may be a different way of looking at that, Jim. All right. All right. Lauren says, if the new version of GA isn't sharing demographics, then how do we get that info forward? I'm asking this question about my audience when other brands decide if they want to partner with my business. So Lauren, that gets to a really good strategy, which is kind of bigger than just Google. What you may want to do, Lauren, is start being very strategic. On your website, you potentially could have things like, this is information that's great for women. Click here. This is information that's great for men, or this is information that's great for, your female side of your personality. This is information that's great for the male side of your personality. You'll know how many people click on those different links. So that's kind of a really strategic way of kind of starting to figure out what is, what's your demographic makeup. So that may be one strategy for you to do, Lauren, depending on what your overall business looks like. Jennifer says, am I going to cover what Google Analytics certificate? I'm assuming if you're referring to a training certificate, that's something that you can find in Skillshop. Jennifer, hopefully that answers that question. All right, Karen says, does SCORE offer one-on-one help with interpreting specific Google Analytics data in insights? Diane, you may want to address that a little bit more. That may not, I don't see that necessarily as the role of a SCORE mentor. But Diane, do you have a viewpoint on that?
We can certainly give you guidance about that, but really, as a mentor, what we do is give you guidance. We're not consultants. We don't do the analytics on it, but certainly some of our mentors are more well-versed in this. And what I, as your mentor, if I were your mentor, and I knew that someone else in my chapter had a better handle on this, I would bring them in as a co-mentor, and we often do that, so that we can pool our information, but we are not going to do major analysis on it for you.
Okay. That was basically that
Exactly.
was going to be my thought there too. I'm kind of pausing here. I want to see Lynn's email. Okay, Lynn is saying we're a newcomers social group for ladies. Our goal is to gain new members. Along with a call to action is a photo gallery of past activities tool way to do that. A photo gallery is great. The photo gallery is not necessarily going to bring new visitors to your website, but a photo gallery can kind of let people know, hey, this is how much fun we're having, and we would welcome you here. You're saying, how can you enhance the page to have them apply while they're on their website? Do you know what? I would say, Lynn, and again, this is a conversation with a SCORE mentor, have something that's a very easy lift for them. Something along the lines of, click here to request a phone call from one of our members who can kind of let you know what's going on, in our community. Make it something really easy for people to do. That way they can, feel a little bit more comfortable about that. That might be an idea. Or again, that's another good conversation for a SCORE mentor. Jennifer says, I just reached an email saying I reached 70,000 photo views. How can I use this to my advantage? Jennifer, I don't know what that is in relation to. But what you could do is let people know, if that was on social media or on your Google business profile, that let people know, hey, we're super excited because you guys are paying attention. So that may be kind of an interesting marketing strategy there. Lisa, I just put Lisa's asking about the email address that I just mentioned. Look in the chat, Lisa, that's where the information is that I put. Nicole says, how can I be sure I sign up for the concurrent workshops in this series? Nicole, be on the lookout for information from SCORE. Diane,
yes.
Do you want to comment on that?
Yes, you will be getting links in your email. That email will include the slides that Pamela has shown today. It will include a link to this video, and it will include links to sign up for the other webinars to come up. So yes.
Okay, hang on just a second here.
Someone is looking for you to speak at their community college, Pamela.
Yeah, I see that here. Okay. There we go. All right. Amanda is saying, what are tags? Tags are kind of like a more advanced level of Google Analytics that can kind of help you measure the performance of people taking certain actions. They're not like hashtags like we think of with social media. We don't get into that at this level of presentation, but Amanda, if you want more information about tags, you can definitely get that in Skillshop. Let's see. Jerry says, this is a good question. What is Google Analytics versus Google My Business? Do I need both? Google My Business is the previous name of what is now called the Google Business Profile, which helps your business show up on Google Maps. So people in your local community can find you through your business profile, which people sometimes still call Google My Business. Google Business Profile kind of has its own analytics in that it does not connect with Google Analytics. Google Analytics lets you know how people interact with your primary website, which is your www.jerrysbusiness.com or something along those lines. So they're two totally separate type tools. They don't really interact much at all.
And aren't you having a one of the webinars is on Google Maps?
I believe it is. Yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head what date it is,
I think
but you
that's in
guys
November, but
be on the lookout for information from SCORE because they will absolutely let you know when I do that one next, please. Some of these questions people have already asked me, so I'm not going to repeat them again. A couple of people are asking me more about Facebook. We're not going to go there because I already talked about that. Let's see.
Debbie is asking, to SCORE work with all businesses in Sarasota? Absolutely. Yeah. If it's legal, we're there. We can help you. And if you're not in Sarasota, then apply anyway, and you will be assigned someone in your local area.
All right. So, and then the last question that we have here, that's for the group, is Anna says, I'm having issue with my Google Analytics account. It's telling me I'm not the administrator, or I don't have permission to a lot of areas. It's also telling me in AdSense, my account has been disapproved. Are there resources to fix this issue? Anna, again, without me knowing what's going on behind the scenes, if it's telling you that you are not an administrator, that tells me somebody else is the administrator of your Google Analytics account. My hunch is either you're an employee of some other type of organization, and some other person who may not even work there anymore may have set up the Google Analytics account. You're going to have to kind of see if you can figure out who that person is or was, in which case then you may be able to kind of reclaim that. AdSense, just so you all don't know, AdSense is if you want to have other people's advertisements on your website, that's what AdSense is. Anna, we're not talking about AdSense. Google doesn't talk about that under the Grow with Google umbrella at all, so I'm not the best resource for that one. So unfortunately, I don't have super easy answers for you, but as far as the Google Analytics, who the administrator is, you're going to have to do some digging, ask some questions around your office to find out who that person could be. The other scenario would be if some other person built your website for you, whoever built it may have set themselves up as the administrator, in which case you kind of need to resolve that. Just so you know, Google will not get in the middle of who deserves to have these accounts. That's not Google's job. So you'll kind of have to do a little bit of legwork to kind of figure that out, unfortunately. All right, Karen asked, where is Skillshop? Let me go back to Skillshop here. See if I can find that. There we go. That's Skillshop, Karen. You can find it at skillshop.withgoogle.com. And remember, everybody, you all will get from SCORE a copy of the video, yes, as well as a copy of my slides.
Yes.
All right, I'm looking at the clock here, and you guys had lots of great questions. And so thank you all for those of you who hung on with us for the extra 17 minutes of your day. I appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you all next time when I'm back here to talk to you more about how you can grow your business with Google.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We look forward to having you again and again and again for the next 4 months. So thank you so much for spending time with us. To our participants, we're down to the hardcore group that are sticking in with us. Thank you so much. I hope you've gotten a lot out of this, and I look forward to seeing you next month for Pamela's presentation. And in the interim, there's a weekly presentation that we give. So just go to minnesota.score.org to sign up. Thank you all for coming. Bye-bye now.